you can probably tell.
Well, these have
It's
been
not my
really,
forte.
these have been interesting for me because I've only ever done interviews that have been in just writing and someone asking
Oh,
me
okay.
something. So like this is a whole different thing for me where it's like I'm seeing people in real time and I'm supposed to be the one talking and asking questions. It's really
Yeah.
strange. It's been a unique experience, and it's as sloppy as real life. You know, like they're not like the smoothest, best things. But I think I like them as like little documents of two people just kind of like bullshitting for a little while.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but anyway, so that said, let's start.
Okay.
So state your name, something about you, could be anything, hobby, job, whatever, your favorite color. And
Okay.
then the first animal that comes to mind right now. So those three
Ooh.
things.
Okay, all right. My name is Yon Lee, and hobby, I love playing the piano, and the first animal that comes to mind is a raccoon.
A raccoon. Why a raccoon?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I just love them.
Oh, okay.
And I actually also just this morning I was just looking at the news and I read that two raccoons actually broke into a bank,
Mm,
one of the banks in Marin County, California. So
as they
I just
do,
thought
as
that
they
that was
do.
adorable. Yeah.
You said you love them. Have you loved them forever, or like for as far back as you can remember? Is this a recent love?
Probably just a few years back, like maybe half a decade ago, 5 years ago. I think it really started with watching Pom Poko, which is one of
You
my
know,
favorite animated
yeah,
films.
that's a fun movie. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wild movie.
Yeah, yeah, extremely wild. I don't, yeah, I know that, it's not everyone's favorite Ghibli film, but it definitely has a special place in my heart.
And yeah, that's interesting. Why is, I mean, I don't hate the film, but yeah, definitely I love the visuals of it, but it didn't make like a big impression on me. What was it about it, do you think, that made an impression on you?
Um, I think I'm just really into the idea of shape shifting and the
Mm,
idea of impermanence and the idea of loss and memory. And I think the film actually did a really good job at capturing all of those.
yeah,
Sort
yeah.
of like this transitional phase of a character or an entire habitat of like raccoons having
Right.
to find a new home in a fast changing world. And I just felt like that's just us humans every day. Like we have to go through so much change, and I just thought it was such an interesting take on just the concept of impermanence itself. And I've always loved Takahata's film for that reason, is that he does a really good job of
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all that. That's I should watch that movie again. It's been a few years. Um, a movie that I don't think, I think it gets a lot of love, but maybe just not quite enough is Porco Rosso. I freaking
Oh, I
have you ever
love
seen it?
Porcorosso.
Yeah, I love
Yeah, I
that
love
movie.
it.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had
Yeah.
the actual you know, because the whole movie was based on a short made for like a Japanese airline, and I
Oh,
actually have
really?
like, yeah, that was like where the whole thing. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that's what it was from though. Uh, and then it like expanded into a big story and a big movie. But I have like a little Japanese Airlines handkerchief with Porco Rosso on it that they gave out way in the beginning of all of.
Oh,
It's
that's
really
so
cool. They're
cool.
super rare.
I had no idea. I have to look
Yeah,
that up.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really fascinating, and I think it's and again I could be bullshitting here, but it's one of Miyazaki's most like personal movies. I think it means a
Mhm.
lot to him because he like loves, you know, he loves airplanes and you know planes in general, all of that stuff. But
Right,
I just
right.
there's something about that movie I just freaking love, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is yet, but it's something I think about often. I think it's because I identify so much with Porco Rosso because I'm Italian, I'm small, I got bad skin. Um,
I think I saw the post you made on Instagram
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Do you do any impressions?
uh, no, no, I'm actually pretty terrible at that. I don't. Yeah, I'm really bad at that. I mean, were you thinking of like any
No, I'm
character
just, it was just a
in
just
particular?
curious. See if you could surprise me with something.
Ooh, an impression. I don't know.
If so,
I
that's
don't think
fine.
I've ever, yeah, I don't
I
think
don't
I've
really have
actually
it either.
ever. Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask if you could surprise me with one.
Yeah, no, I don't have any. I used to do this whole joke, which is like at this point, I'm sure a million people have done, where the impression is just me saying I'm that person. But like, here's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. I used to do that in high school. It was really stupid. Uh, do you have a line, like a go-to line you say to strangers' animals without even realizing it? Like if I see a dog, I automatically go, "Hey, pup," or something along those lines. Is there like a
Oh,
go-to you have?
little animals.
Yeah, or any animal, just any stranger's pet.
I don't think I actually have like a go-to line that I actually tell them, but I
Yeah.
have like thoughts that just sort of like bubble up in my head when I look at them. Like, I just like silently brewing in my head, like, what's going on? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, are
yeah.
you like, do you like me? I'm your friend. And these are thoughts that I just sort of like keep to
I
myself.
wish you said all of those out loud as people are walking the dog. Do you like me? Am I your friend? They're like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
Uh, that's
I mean, I do like the casual, like, hey,
yeah, yeah,
hi.
right.
And then I introduce myself, like, my name's Yon. Obviously, I'm not expecting the dog to be like,
Of
my name
course.
is so
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so.
That would be awesome. That would be a really cool world though. Do you acknowledge the person? I don't, admittedly, I don't do that a lot. I usually
Ooh.
just talk to their dog.
Yeah, yeah. Very rarely do I approach the person first.
Yeah.
Usually, I make eye contact with the dog first, or
Yeah.
their pet, or whatever. And then once we've established that connection, and once I see that it's mutual, and then I turn to the owner and I go, "So cool! Thanks for letting me pet your dog, or whatever. Like, what's his name?" And then I'll right before they leave, I'm like, "Thank you so much. What's your name?" So I always try to get the dog's name first before
Yeah,
the
yeah.
person's name. And that is usually not a conscious decision. It's just an afterthought of like, shoot, I spent maybe 90% trying to get to know the dog. And right before we part ways, I turn to the owner and say, "I'm sorry, what's your name?"
Yep, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I won't even go that far. I'll just smile and nod depending on the situation. But like I always, the most of the interaction is me and the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
No, I hear you.
so I know you draw and you're obviously just based on your Instagram. Is it a job of yours? Do you storyboard for a company or?
I do. Yeah.
Okay,
I currently storyboard for Pixar. Been here for almost 3 years now. So I
that's awesome.
moved out to the Bay Area in 2018. And then on the side, when I'm not storyboarding, I just love like, doing my own illustration, doing little comics, or like playing music on the side.
Now, do you remember like when have you always drawn your whole life?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think I've always just growing up, my dad would actually bring home like literally bulks and bulks of like office papers,
Mm.
and he would basically clip them into a bundle. And those were actually one of my earliest sketchbooks. And I think I had them for several years. Like my dad would actually just bring home like bundles of like office papers, like, here, you can draw on them. And I would draw them on the flip side, obviously not where the
Yeah.
paperwork is,
Hmm.
because, yeah. And these were waste papers anyway.
Right.
They're not like official office papers.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think I've always drawn since I was a kid, but I don't think I was ever really good at it until I started hanging out with a friend in high school, and we started drawing together, and that was when I started really thinking about like, is could I actually do this for a living?
So you wouldn't say that you had a sort of natural talent for it? Like, did you start off higher than most other kids, would you say? Or were you just really just base like stick figures type drawing for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would consider myself, like being that high school kid who like draws better than other people. I think I
Uh-huh.
was just obviously that kid who drew a lot, but I don't necessarily think that I was better. I definitely was that class artist because I've
Yeah.
exhibited, my love or passion for like craft work or
Hmm.
painting. But that didn't mean that I was better than anybody else. considering that they hadn't put in as much time as I did. So there are definitely a couple people who were better at it than me, but I think I just did it so
Yeah.
often that I got, like the artist label. And I think I earned it through like the amount of time that I put in,
Yeah.
rather the
Right.
quality of work that came out.
Now, like obviously, there's a million different reasons why artists do what they do and their inspiration, but just like to keep it as simple as possible, if you had to like kind of lean towards one of these early on, as far as you remember, do you think your inspiration for drawing and art was more escapism? Or was it like exploration of certain ideas that were in your head? Was it just some urge that you had or something else?
Um, that's interesting. I actually haven't thought about it. I think I just drew because I liked it. So maybe that would, be leaning more towards escapism, where, instead of doing my homework, I would actually spend more time drawing. And I did a lot of fan art for, a lot of like the anime shows that I grew up with. And my friend and I wrote sort of like our own fan fiction of like Godzilla and, and also like some animes that we actually watched together. So I definitely think it was more on the escapism part than actually consciously feeling that I had something to say.
What was like, doesn't have to be your favorite, but what is an anime that pops in your head as a kid that you really loved?
Oh, as a kid,
Yeah.
definitely Doraemon was one of them.
Okay.
Doraemon, Dragon Ball is one of them,
Hmm.
and another one called uh, Shin-Chan, Crayon Shin-Chan.
Never heard of that.
The yeah, I mean these are from like the eight. What Doraemon I think originated in the '60s to
Yeah.
like '70s. You've probably seen an image of a robotic blue cat, sort of
Okay.
like a
Hmm.
gadget cat from the future. It was one of my favorite because it used to play on TV a lot when I was a kid. That was one of my go-tos, and
That's
I
awesome.
also collected the comics. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking Fist of the North. Have you ever seen Fist of the North Star?
Oh, I know of that, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, I used to think that was the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in
Mhm.
a while, so I don't know if it actually holds up. But
I should try to check it out.
has anyone ever drawn you that you know of?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was very common when I went to art college, where one of the things that you naturally would do is to have a sketchbook that you carry around with, and then naturally when you're sitting with your friends, you'd start drawing them, and they'll
Yeah, yeah,
start
yeah.
drawing you, and that kind of exchange was very common and in art school. And I think yeah, we did that a lot. I don't think anyone drew me professionally though.
Now,
As a job, yeah.
before you mentioned you didn't like quote, I guess, take art as seriously until you met a friend in high school.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
obviously you can't know this for a fact, but just like, what does your gut say? If you never met this friend, do you think your art career would have been totally different?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he definitely had a huge impact on my approach in art. He was such an amazing artist. Before he actually joined my school or my class, I was the only class artist. I was the guy who put in all that work to, decorate the class, or, like do posters for the schools for
Right.
activities and curriculums. And then when he came in, all of a sudden we're splitting the job because he was so good at it. And I think when he came in, we just sort of like immediately clicked, because now all of a sudden I have someone to actually share my love with. And he was the person who actually got me into serious manga reading and my love for anime, really. He introduced me to most of the Ghibli films, and I think it was really from there that he sort of like opened this door for me, sort of like unlocked this like new dimension for me to actually see that, oh, there's actually more than just doing little doodles and like stick
Yeah.
figures and monster drawings.
It's
Yeah.
incredible, those little moments in life. They're so important because you can have it like if you I've known people where if they didn't meet that one person at that exact time, their whole
Mhm.
lives would have been different. So like those
Yeah,
are really special moments. That's awesome that you
totally.
met up.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned your dad gave you documents to draw on.
Hmm.
Was he an artist?
No, he's not an artist. He's basically, he's a businessman,
Okay.
and but he knew that I loved drawing, and I think growing up, I actually spent more time coloring on, like, I guess you'd call them coloring books, right, for kids.
Mm,
I actually got more of those than I did, like drawing projects. But and I think it was really my dad saw that I had a love for like coloring, on those like coloring books, and he was like, well, he should maybe try drawing.
yeah.
And that was when he started bringing home like bundles of like papers for me to draw on, and I think I just like never stopped.
Now, I mean, he sounds like a supportive dad. You guys got along?
Yeah,
Yeah.
super supportive, super lucky.
So would you be able to name one positive trait and one negative trait you possibly got from him?
um, positive positive trait, um, is that I can be very trusting, um, uh, to people that I have just met, and I've established great relationships because of that.
Mm,
A negative trait is I can be very trustful of someone to a fault. So it's both a positive and negative, and I've
right.
seen that in my dad, and I think it's sort of like just this tightrope that you have to balance as a person and just use
Right. Right.
judgment. But I've always loved that part of my dad, but sometimes I also see a part of myself that is like, ooh, like I have to use good judgment.
Yeah. 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 What's a comfort food that you had growing up?
Ooh, my gosh, I think definitely Korean ramen growing up. I think it's called, yeah, definitely Shin Ramen, the
Okay.
spicy like red Korean ramen that I grew up with. Just like the classic, like throw it into a pot of hot boiling water, and like pepper and eggs. Yeah.
Would you just have that whenever you wanted a snack just to feel comforted, or is there a specific time of day you like to have it?
Um, well, when I was a kid, it was mostly post school. Like once I get off the school bus, get home, and I'll start making that for myself. I actually haven't had that in a long time. Yeah, but it was definitely something that made me super happy. That's all it takes. Like if I eat something that keeps me happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty food based as well. Like my mood can shift based on what I'm eating. Um, did you have well, maybe let's say, did you have a favorite book or a movie growing up that sticks out in your mind right now?
Favorite book or movie growing up?
And if you can't think of anything, that's fine. I just was curious if something jumped out at you when I asked you that.
Yeah, I think one of the books that actually really jumped out at me, and I don't know that it was my favorite book, but I think it just left a huge impression on me,
Mm.
was The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. And it's,
Mm.
within the world of Narnia. And I think that really made a huge impression on me, because it was one of the first young adult books that I had read. I think I was maybe 10 or 11. And up until then, I think I've only been, reading, I don't know, like picture books or whatever. And
Yeah.
I wasn't really fond of reading or whatever. And so when that book came into my life, it really made a huge impression on me. Especially too, it talks about mortality, and a kid's struggle in understanding immortality versus mortality, and the good and the bad of it. And I was like 11, so that was just like
Yeah,
a
that's a
mind trip.
perfect
Yeah.
age to start reading stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's like you're not quite there yet, but you're there enough to start absorbing these big ideas.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you remember the last nightmare you had?
Yeah, I was actually just telling this to a friend the other day. I might have been last year. I had a nightmare where I was woken up by the sound of like these shoes walking around in my apartment. So I remember vividly just sort of like getting up from my bed and I'm looking around me and I see in my living room is a man, sort of like in a shadowy figure, and I couldn't really see his face. But what I clocked, was like what he was wearing was a pair of black leather shoes pointing toward me, and he started walking in my direction.
Mm.
So I ran away, and I think I must have sort of like, I don't know, done several loops around my apartment before I got back into my bed again and sort of like hid underneath my blanket because I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And then I woke up from that and I was like, well, that was a crazy nightmare. Um, so I started turning on all the lights in my apartment, and it must have been, I don't know, maybe around 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was
Hmm.
freaking out and it was
Yeah.
ventilating. So I sat down on my couch in my living room and I was like, something doesn't feel quite right. Like I feel this weird lingering presence of someone
Mm.
watching me. And I had just then decided at that moment to look beneath my couch. And when I did that, when I took a peek of what's beneath my couch, I saw um, like I see two, like a pair of black leather shoes pointing back at me,
Oh,
just underneath my couch. And I freaked out. That was when I realized, wait, am I actually still dreaming? Yeah, it was a mind trip.
well, I'm gonna break it to you right now. It was me stalking you.
It was you.
Yeah.
Are you
Imagine I
wearing a
held up the
pair of
boots
black
right now.
leather shoes now? Yeah, I developed a fear of like black leather like
Interesting.
shoes or boots for that
Yeah.
entire week.
Wow.
Hmm.
Um, do you usually sleep well? Was that like an anomaly, or do you have nightmares often?
I usually have nightmares when I have caffeine when I'm not supposed to.
Mm,
So
okay.
I know that I'm not supposed to drink caffeine past 3 p.m. Because that really keeps me up and it gives me vivid nightmares, like terrible nightmares. Yeah.
But without that, you're generally all right.
Without that, I'm generally fine. I think I'm a light sleeper, so I'll have, like earplugs
Yeah,
to
I
keep
gotta
me
start
sleeping.
doing that. I'm
Yeah.
such a light sleeper. I mean, I wake up constantly, but if someone goes like this, 2 rooms away, I'm up. That's it. So yeah, I definitely should try that earplug thing. Are you religious or spiritual in any way?
I'm definitely spiritual. I think growing up I was super religious. Like I would
Mm,
pray every night before going to bed. I would ask like favors from God. I Yeah, I remember just vividly constantly asking God for help. So I was raised like a religious Buddhist. That obviously would be different. But still, like why I believed in a God at the time, I would before going to bed every night, I would just pray for everything, like the good of the world, but then also like the decimation of my evil brother because he was so mean to me.
yeah, yeah.
And I think I'm a grown up now and sort of just like grown into my own views, and I definitely think I'm a lot more spiritual now than religious. But then
Okay.
my parent or my friends would sometimes call me a convenient prayer or a convenient believer because sometimes when you're down in the dumps and you just don't have anyone to turn to, you're like, is there a God out
Yeah,
there?
yeah, of course. So like in your gut, do you feel like there's some type of um order to the universe, even if you don't understand it? Or would you say you're more leaning towards like this probably chaos? Based on everything you've
um
said, you kind of sound like more of an order person if you're still spiritual, but maybe not.
yeah, I mean, I believe in chaos, but I also believe in things that are that can't be that can't be explained. And I'm
Mm,
saying that because I feel like to just believe in some kind of higher order or like some kind of higher power just makes me feel less alone.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
I don't I don't take that for granted in a sense where
Mm,
I'm like, someone's going to take care of everything. But it's more so like I honestly don't know And I think it just keeps me in a more humble place to just be open to anything. I think it just helps to humble myself and be open to any experiences in life that I may have otherwise suppressed if I'm being super rigid to one specific thought.
Yeah, yeah. I always envy people who inside can like conceive of there being something after death or some type of spirit, because like in my heart I so want to believe that, but I can't get myself there. It's just not a part of me, at least now, to like get to that point. But I truly do mean this. I believe I would be a better, more confident, more successful person if I did believe, if I like felt that inside. Because you're right, it is, it's like you feel less alone in some way, and you feel like someone's got your back.
Yeah.
And that can really make you do stuff that you normally wouldn't do and push you a little bit further. I just don't have that. I wish I did.
Yeah. And I think that that's like fine. Like I don't like every time when I'm facing some kind of difficulty or hardship, like I never go, like, oh mighty energy,
Yeah,
wherever
yeah,
you are.
yeah.
Thank you so much for having my back.
Yeah, yeah.
Like usually when I'm feeling terrible or shitty, I usually feel super lonely and
Mm,
alone. And I think sometimes even if you have friends and family or a partner, like those feelings won't necessarily go away.
yeah. Hmm.
And I don't think, like, at least for me, like believing in some kind of like possibility that there may be an existence of a higher power hasn't actually helped me feel better, really.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, because I feel like for me, it definitely, even in little ways I wasn't fully aware of, I feel like it would probably enhance my life. Um, but this could be a whole big conversation in and of itself. I have a few more questions for you before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so react to this statement however it hits you. Money
Okay.
can't buy you happiness.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that that can be a very subjective take
Hmm.
on what, like, you know, what money means to like each individual, right? Um, I guess for me, I think from a theoretical standpoint, I do agree that money can um, buy happiness, but I think what mm, I think for people who really need money to survive, I think that might be something that they would react to differently. I think for me, I don't consider myself to be super rich, but I
Mm,
think I'm doing financially okay.
mm,
But I do remember a time where I was struggling so hard financially, and just thinking, and I'm just thinking in sort of like the quirks and screws of like like how do you define happiness, right? Like I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about like
Hmm.
people who can't pay for college, and that is definitely a factor. And sure, like money in itself can't buy someone happiness. That's basically talking to the genie and be like, make me happy. Like
Yep.
no one can do that
Hmm.
for you, aside from yourself. But I think sometimes for you to be able to achieve like said happiness, which is subjective to each individual, like some people would have to feel accomplished. And I think to feel accomplished, you'd have to start somewhere. And I think for some people, it's just, you know, like basic necessities of being able to support their family
Yep.
or being able to go to school and being able to not have to worry about, like having food on your dinner table every night. And these little things actually build up into, like little moments of happiness. To summarize maybe what happiness would mean to people differently on an everyday average basis. I don't know if that
Right.
answers your
No,
question.
yeah, I actually have some major issues with a few sayings, and that's one of them. And I think you
Yeah.
touched upon some things that I think about as well. Um, all right, well, this is a good segue, not at all, to my next question, which is, tell me about your relationship with underwear. Do you go cheap, expensive? How often do you buy new ones? Do you have a lot?
Hmm. I actually I actually have a few different kinds. I have the older kinds that I wear that I've had for years, and those are obviously the super comfy type. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, quarantine underwear, like I'll wear whatever I want because
Mhm.
I'm in my apartment. Um, but you know, I think it depends on like the occasion. Like if we're talking post quarantine and I have to go to work, obviously I'll have to be more watchful of, you know, like the quality of the underwear that I wear would have to be super comfortable for me to move around a lot from one space to another. But when I'm in my apartment, I'll just wear whatever. And and during COVID time, I've ranged from, like ugly underwear to just like nice underwears that I treat myself to.
Yeah, yeah. Do you like change them out? Apparently, you're supposed to. I don't know if this is true. Change them out every 6 months, which I don't know anyone who actually does that. But is that a thing? Do you do that?
Every 6 months.
Yeah, I read that in
Hmm.
like two separate places. Maybe it was just weird, but it's like, wow, that seems like too often. Maybe I'm gross. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I try to just wash them as often as I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I also don't spend a lot of money on, like clothing or
Mm,
like,
hmm.
so maybe I'm different. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it's important to people that, oh, this is my fall underwear and
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
my winter underwear and this is my spring underwear.
This is my
I don't
sexy
know.
underwear. This is my
This is my
lazy underwear.
sexy underwear.
uh, so if you could put yourself in this situation right now, where if you want to close your eyes or not, whatever, if you picture one comic panel right now in your mind, and that comic panel makes you feel safe and comfortable, happy, what what do you see in that panel? What are some things that stick out? Colors, items, anything. Where are you?
Oh, all right. It's me in my current apartment with a dog.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible because that is so attainable. That's amazing. That's really good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. That would be very far from mine. But that's
It's
awesome that
yours.
you're there. I don't even, don't put me on the spot. You're on the spot, not me right
Okay.
now.
All right.
Like I
All
tell
right.
you, it
You
wouldn't be
understand.
something super attainable, I don't think. But that's awesome. All right. And last question is, do you have a small piece of life advice for people? Nothing big. Like for me, it might be, if you owe someone money, immediately write it down so you don't forget. Something small and like that could maybe make your life a little better.
Hmm. I don't.
And if you don't, that's
Yeah.
totally
I
fine.
don't. Yeah. I don't know that I have like a life.
I have a different
A lot
question.
of
If you
this.
don't, if nothing comes to you, I have a different one for you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's.
Have you ever bought something small that made your life better in like maybe a tiny but meaningful way? That's not super obvious. Like an item, anything, even if it's personal to you, it made you happy, a bracelet, anything like that.
Yeah. I recently bought like a little string for my necklace.
Mm,
And it made me super happy because I've had this little pendant that my mom gave me as a kid. And I've actually had it since I was a kid. I don't know when, but it's
mm,
followed me from my childhood all the way through now. And so it's followed me from my childhood in Malaysia all the way till now. And I think the string actually broke maybe a couple years back, and I haven't replaced it. And I think just replacing this string, it was $5 I paid for that.
yeah,
And replacing it, I was wearing it again the other day, and it just reminded me of my home, my mom, and everything that I loved about my family and my
mm,
childhood, and just sort of like being able to wear that around my neck.
yeah,
$5 to pay for that
yeah,
was
yeah.
like really, really something. It's not big, but it's like, it almost sort of like helped me ground myself back again. And in this world where I remember like the people who made me and the people who mean so much to me and the people
Right.
who ground me down.
That's awesome. Did you buy that at a store or did you order it? The
I bought that at a store, but I think I might actually get a different string because it's way too thick for the pendant itself.
Right.
So
But for
yeah,
now, it gave you that, even if you're
yeah,
like, that's so
yeah.
cool. It's
It's a
like that
moment.
person you bought it from probably had no idea. Like they just sold you this $5 little piece of string, having no idea that it was going to mean so much to you. I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right. So do you want anyone to follow you or anything like that?
I'm sure I'm not going to say no. I mean, if you
Mm.
want to follow me on my
I
Instagram,
mean, I get
it's
millions of views on this.
yeah. Actually, shoot, I forget what my Instagram username is. Oh, let me see. It is. Sometimes I forget.
Sometimes I
You know what?
forget at Instagram.com.
Forget about it.
Well, you know what? If you want, I'll post it in like the notes section or something from this. But look, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. This is awesome.
All right. Thank you, Michael. So nice chatting with you.